Here are 12 mixing tips for Logic Pro X. Tip 1 is gain automation on vocals. So what is gain automation? Gain automation specifically focuses on adjusting the volume level of vocal tracks, or any track really, to ensure they sit well in the mix and are balanced with other instruments and elements. This can involve making subtle volume adjustments to smooth out volume discrepancies, emphasizing certain phrases or words by boosting their volume, and also automating the start and ends of phrases to emphasize detail and emotional expression. So why do gain automation? Because it's used in mixing to dynamically adjust the volume of tracks, ensuring clarity, emotional impact, and a balanced mix by controlling volume fluctuations and emphasizing key elements in your overall production. So of course, you can use any of these concepts for any instrument. So you could do this on a bass, you could do this on a drum performance, but we are going to focus on vocals because this is 9 times out of 10 going to be the focal point in your productions and mixes, and it's critical to get this right when you are mixing vocals. So before we do any processing here, let's turn off any processing here and here. Let's just solo our vocal. We're just going to look at this one section here, this verse 1, and then we're just going to see where we're at, and then we'll start to make adjustments.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy, pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. No use in pretending.
Alright, so this is what gain automation will look like. So we will actually start to automate the gain of certain sections here by just going to our gain and gently adjusting and reducing certain parts here. So overall, this is pretty level. We've got some parts here that we can bring up. And now the big thing here is that you want to use your ears. Too much of this is going to start to sound unnatural. Bring our breath across here. I'm just going to turn our mouth declick on.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy, pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
Okay, so we have got quite a lot of variation in terms of the performance itself. So we've got this sang part here at the beginning and end, and then we've got this more speaky, whispery part. So we might want to do some more.
I smell jealousy, a humble. I smell jealousy.
Might want to bring this up.
I smell jealousy, a humble enemy.
Bring that up as well. And I actually want to separate the breaths because I want to automate the breaths down, because I know that when it comes to compression, these are going to come up as well. So if I can mitigate some of that gain from the get-go, we're in a good spot. So now let's actually listen to this with the context of the music so that we can see where we're at.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and
okay, so out, we're losing that a little bit.
Look at the price you're paying.
Bring that up a touch.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
Bring this up a little bit as well.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy, pretty sure this villain story started suiting me.
Let's mute our doubles for now.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy, started suiting me.
Okay, so we're losing a little bit of this part here. So we're going to go in here and we're going to start really adjusting this stuff. Before we think about anything else, we want to make sure we've got the intelligibility in terms of the dynamic range, and we've smoothed and evened out some of this dynamic range before we even go into dynamics processing.
Pretty sure this feeling story started suiting me. No use. Pretty sure this feeling story started suiting me. No use in pretending.
Okay, we're completely losing this part here.
Use in pretending. No use in pretending.
We don't need to bring the S up so much.
No use in pretending.
Okay, we can bring these up for sure. For surezies.
Pretending, keep my happy ending.
And for these little parts here, this is where we're going to go one step further. So if we pull up a gain plugin, I'm going to gain automate these phrases as well. So let's make sure we've got our gain. Yep, we've got our gain selected.
Ending. Then keep my happy ending.
Can even automate this section here as well.
The ending.
Bring that up a touch.
Ending. I'll be whispering.
Let's maybe smooth this out a little bit.
Ending. I'll be whispering.
So let's just focus on this. Let's just focus on this section.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confess.
Okay, let's go back to our gain here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy.
Bring this breath down.
I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this feeling story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending, keep my happy ending.
We've already done a bit of automation here. Anyway, but let's just bring that up a touch. And then now we can fade all of these globally. So I'm going to do a -2 curve, 20 fade out, and then the type equal power crossfade. So that will minimize any pops and clicks. Bring this, fade that up. Let's mute any backing vocals and vocal effects for now. And let's have a listen to this with the music.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this feeling story started suiting me. No.
Okay, so I can bring this up overall.
I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this feeling story started suiting me. No use in pretending. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
Okay, so we've got this effect here, so we'll just
keep my happy ending.
can actually afford to bring this up overall here. And this. So you can kind of eyeball it as well, but it's really important to actually use your ears as well, because if you go overboard with this, it will start to sound really strange. So let's just listen to this lead up here.
I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started soon to me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending up.
Perfect. Let's just bring ending up. Just a ding of ending. Just touch more. And now we have a far smoother, more controlled dynamic range, and we're making sure as much as possible that we can accentuate what needs to be accentuated in the vocal in terms of any emotional parts of the performance and ends of words as well, so that we can really try to dial in the intelligibility so we can hear exactly what the singer is singing about and accentuate the story vocally with the two tools of gain automation, clip gain automation, and then just your bog standard gain, utility gain plugin, and then just doing some gentle automation here. And as I mentioned earlier, you can automate breaths, so you can clip gain those down. And you can also go so far as to actually clip gain S's down, so you can tame some sibilants. That's something that Jake does a lot, and it just saves you a ton of time, because you know that from the get-go, you're addressing all of these issues before you start grabbing for your favorite compressor or de-esser or EQ, and you can actually just start to get this 85% of the way there, and then just think about enhancing as opposed to trying to fix problems here. So that is how you can gain automate your vocals, and this will considerably up your vocal game. So if you start implementing this into your workflow, people will be flocking to have you produce their vocals. Before we move on to the next tip, over 1,000 self-recording musicians who have been struggling to achieve the sound in their head have downloaded our free volume balancing cheat sheet and used it to improve the quality of their mixes in a matter of days. This cheat sheet gives you a foolproof system to level up your mixes, starting from the most important foundation. Ultimately, this will help you to create pristine, well-balanced mixes before you even start pulling up any mixing plugins. So if you want to get access to that for free, just click the link in the description below and enter your details. Tip 2 is serial compression on vocals. Serial compression refers to the process of applying multiple layers or stages of compression to any track. In this particular case, we're using a vocal in a sequential manner. So instead of using just one compressor with significant gain reduction, serial compression involves using several compressors in a chain, each with a more subtle effect. So the goal of serial compression is to achieve more transparent and controlled dynamics without excessively altering the natural character of the vocal performance. By applying multiple compressors in series, each compressor can handle a smaller portion of the dynamic range, allowing for more nuanced control over the overall dynamic profile of the vocal track. Typically, the first compressor in the chain might handle the initial peaks and transients, while subsequent compressors can smooth out the overall dynamics and add consistency to the vocal performance. This approach allows for a more gradual and musical compression, avoiding the artifacts and pumping often associated with heavy compression settings. So let's dive into this in more detail. So let's turn off our external compressors and let's start using serial compression. So let's go to our compressor. And the beauty here is that we have multiple compressors to choose from that we can compress in series. So first off, I am going to use our studio FET, and I am going to start catching some of the peaks here. So let's turn auto gain off. Let's turn auto attack and release off. So I want a fast attack, fast release here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha
So we're catching all of these peaks here. And I've got a slightly higher ratio here. I could even go a little higher here. And the fast attack, fast release means that we're just kissing those peaks, hitting them and then letting go.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from.
If you want to stay on that a little longer, then we're going to adjust the release to really quickly hit those peaks and then stay on them.
Look at the price you're paying, locked.
That sounds a little sluggish to me and less transparent, so I'm going to go for the fast attack, fast release.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So we've got our first compressor here that is attacking those peaks. Now I want to stack another compressor. Let's go for our vintage Opto and let's do the opposite here. Let's just gradually smooth everything out. So if I go for a 3:1 ratio and let's go for a medium fast attack and a slower release. And let's see what's happening here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending.
So this is too fast for me, so I would go for a kind of medium.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
Because we want to retain these transients, we just want to kiss them here, retain them, and then allow for these to come through, so we're not completely squashing the initial punch and the energy that's coming from the vocalist. If you kind of push this too much, you can end up dulling the vocal dynamics too much, and then it just kind of sounds sluggish and unappealing to the listener because it's not up front and feeling forward. So
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and.
now let's gain match this. Where were we at before?
Look at the price you're paying,
Minus 13.5.
look at the price you're paying, locked out from.
So let's bring our gain up.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy.
So what we're doing here is we're doing the heavy lifting in different loads here. So we've got each compressor taking on a different job here. And we can even go further and think about this in the sense of, do we want this to be thicker and smoother in terms of the dynamics of the vocal, or do we want them to be punchier and sharper? If we want them to be punchier and sharper, then we want to let the attack through and we want to let go of it really quickly.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
As opposed to this.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So we could even go further and then accentuate some of the punchiness with the vocals as well. So now that we have kind of attacked those peaks, we've smoothed out the dynamics of the vocal, we can now use this as an enhancing compression to bring out some of the punch of the vocal by doing what we spoke about earlier.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
So we're getting some.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So we're getting a combination of gain reduction that is accumulating over the series. So we've got
Look at the price you're paying,
3 to 4 dB of gain reduction on this one.
look at the price you're paying,
Again, another 3 to 4 dB,
look at the price you're paying.
and then 2 dB here. So we've got in total around kind of 10 to 11 to 12 decibels of gain reduction overall in series, and this sounds a lot less harsh and aggressive as it would do if we used one compressor and then dialed in 11 dB of gain reduction. So let's do that.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me.
So we're getting some pumping, we're getting some artifacts here where the compressor's not quite catching the rhythm and timing of the vocals, and we can hear that compression, which is totally fine if that's what you're going for. But if you want to go for a more transparent compression that doesn't make the vocal sound as quote unquote compressed, but just evens everything out and also adds the color of each of these compressors, which is imparted by the circuitry within each of these compressors, which we'll talk about later on in one of our other tips. What we're actually starting to achieve here is a more dynamically controlled vocal that feels more upfront, feels more intelligible, but doesn't have the really compressed sound that you can hear when we actually pull the threshold down and create the same amount of gain reduction as we have done overall here. So this is a really, really crucial tool that you can play around with, a crucial concept that you can use to your vocal processing, your vocal mixing. And you can, of course, use this on any element within your mix. And it's worth mentioning that you will probably find yourself more often than not using this for the focal point within your mix to make sure that it is as dynamically controlled as it needs to be, as upfront and intelligible as it needs to be. So there you have it. That is serial compression on vocals. Okay, tip 3 is parallel compression on drums and vocals. Parallel compression, often referred to as New York compression or parallel processing, is a technique used in audio production to enhance the dynamics and impact of sound sources, such as drums and vocals, while retaining the natural dynamics and transients. Parallel compression is done for several reasons. First of all, we want to preserve the natural dynamics. So one of the primary reasons we use parallel compression is to retain the natural dynamics and transients of the original sound source while still achieving the benefits of compression. By blending the heavily compressed signal and the original signal, you can maintain the dynamics and nuances of the performance, preventing it from sounding overly processed or squashed. The second reason is that we can enhance impact and presence. Parallel compression allows you to add weight, punch, and sustain to a sound source without sacrificing its natural character. The heavily compressed signal adds energy and intensity to the mix, making the sound source more present and impactful without making it sound overly compressed or unnatural. The third reason is control over dynamics. So parallel compression provides greater control over the dynamics of a sound source. By blending the compressed signal with the original signal, you can adjust the balance between the compressed and uncompressed elements to achieve the desired level of dynamics and intensity in the mix. And our fourth reason is creating depth and dimension. Parallel compression can also be used to create depth and dimension in a mix. By blending the heavily compressed signal with the original signal, you can create a sense of space and depth, making the sound source stand out in the mix while still fitting cohesively with the other elements. So parallel compression is a really useful tool in so many different aspects of the mixing and production process. So let's demonstrate using this on drums and vocals. So first of all, I have got my drums grouped. So we've got it in a summing stack in Logic Pro, and we are going to send it to a bus. So let's just pick bus 14 because I like the number 4. It's my lucky number. So we can pull in a compressor, and I'm going to send this to Unity. So we've got this sent all the way. We can push that even more, but I'll just leave it there for now. And then we are actually going to blend in the parallel process with the fader as opposed to the send knob here. So let's pick our FET compressor and let's start to dial in some aggressive compression here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy end.
I'm going to leave our limiter off, but I want to use this distortion module here. So I'm going to put hard on.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing.
So you can see here, we've got a ton of compression happening here.
Locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha ha.
And then let's blend this in now.
Look at.
Let's solo the drums. So we're getting a lot more of the room around the clap. So we're getting some of that ambience, and we're also getting some crunch with the kick and a little bit of that low end boost, which is really nice. Let's actually dial in this attack and release. So I want to go for a more punchy drum sound. So we're trying to keep this gain matched as much as possible here. So we're getting a lot more life and character. So let's A/B this in the context of the mix with our compressor on and our parallel processing off.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
Okay, now let's turn this off.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So we're losing a lot of that character. We're losing that sense of dimension and space as well that's being accentuated by the compression, particularly on the claps and snares. So let's A/B this as we're listening, and I'll just keep turning it on and off.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So this is quite subtle if you're not used to listening for compression, or you don't know how to listen to compression, and you haven't trained your ears to be able to kind of hear those dynamic discrepancies here. But if you have a good monitoring system, you're wearing some decent headphones, and you have done some ear training and know how to listen for compression, you will start to hear these differences that really start to add up over time when you use processing like this on different elements within your mix. So with that being said, let's move on to parallel processing on our vocals. So let's turn off our parallel processing on our drums. Let's pick another bus here. And I'm going to use this parallel compression setting that I have used before, and it is parallel processing with some distortion as well. So we've got our limiter on as well. We've got our distortion to clip. We've got distortion 2 here, and then we have got a medium fast attack and medium fast release, and we've got a 13:1 ratio, so we've got quite a lot of compression happening here. So let's actually dial this in.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy.
So let's turn off our compressors in serial here that we used earlier on.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confess.
So we're getting a lot of grit, we're getting a lot of mid-range information from this compressor and this distortion here. So we can go one step further and actually start to shape the tone of this parallel compression as well.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So what I love here is the energy that it's bringing and the sense of it feeling a lot more upfront in the mix itself. But what I'm not too fond of is the build-up of the mid-range here that's being accentuated with the compressor and the distortion. And of course, we would also think about how we're shaping the tone of our vocal as well. But right off the bat, I just want to just carve out some of the space here with the low mids, the lows, and the mids here. So what that is allowing me to do is to actually push that a little further without getting that build up that I'm not too fond of.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me.
So the vocals sound so much louder, but when we're actually looking at the meter, there's not much changing.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha
but it's a very, very noticeable difference here in terms of how upfront these vocals feel, how in your face and forward they feel, which is exactly what we are going for in this particular production. So if you are going for that, the combination of aggressive compression, distortion, and shaping the tone as well on your send is going to make a huge difference while still retaining the performance and dynamics of the original dry signal of your vocal. So let's have a listen to this and we'll just A/B it a couple of times.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So we can dial this back to taste as well. I'm pushing this a lot further so that we can actually hear what's happening.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So it's worth mentioning here, just so that you know, you can also blend in the dry wet of our mix here. So you can do parallel processing with your compression just in the compressor itself and have this as an insert. I personally prefer to have this as a send so that I can add different processing on top of the compressor as well. Like we can shape our tone and we can also add distortion without affecting the dry signal. Whereas of course, if we were to add this as an insert and then blend this in and then add an EQ and a distortion, that is going to affect the overall dry signal itself if the distortion and EQ modules don't have a parallel processing feature here, which our EQ doesn't have that, and nor does our distortion. So that is kind of why I opt for having this as a send here. So for fun, let's just A/B our drum and vocal parallel processing and listen to how that is going to change the overall characteristics of those elements and the feeling of the mix. So this is without.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
And this is after, with just parallel processing on our drums and our vocals.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So let's have a listen again, and I'm going to turn this on and off as you are listening.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So when we're A/Bing that, we can really start to hear how this is adding life and energy to not only these elements, but how we are perceiving the overall mix. It feels a lot more impactful, a lot more upfront, a lot more energetic, which is exactly what we're going for in this particular production. And this is going to start to add that nuance, that sophistication, that character without necessarily destroying the original intent of the dynamics and tone of each of these elements. So there you have it. There is parallel compression on drums and vocals. Tip 4 is our reverse delay send effect. In Logic Pro, a reverse delay send effect involves creating a reversed echo or delay effect that is sent to a particular track or bus. This technique can create unique and atmospheric textures in your music. Using a reverse delay send effect in Logic Pro X or any other DAW can serve several creative purposes. First off, we can create atmospheric textures. So reverse delay effects can add depth and atmosphere to your tracks. They create a sense of space and ambience, making your music sound more expansive and immersive. This can be particularly effective in genres like ambient, electronic, or cinematic music. The second reason is that we can enhance transitions. Reverse delay effects are often used to enhance transitions between sections of a song. By applying the effect to certain elements such as vocals, drums, or synths, you can create smooth transitions that build anticipation and interest as the reverse sound leads into the next section. A third reason is adding interest to sound design. So reverse delay effects can be applied to individual sounds or sound effects to create unique textures and sonic variations. This can be useful for sound design in film, video games, or multimedia projects, where you want to create distinctive and captivating audio elements. Reason 4 is creative expression. Using reverse delay effects allows you to experiment with different sonic textures and creative effects, adding your own unique touch to your music. It provides an opportunity for artistic expression and exploration, helping you to develop your own signature sound. And reason 5 is emphasizing certain moments. Applying reverse delay effects to specific moments within a song can draw attention to those moments and make them stand out more. Whether it's a vocal phrase, a guitar riff, or a drum fill, the reversed echo can add a captivating and memorable quality to the music. So we can try this effect on a ton of different elements here. I'm going to start off with our vocals and then we can try some different elements as well. So let's send this vocal to a new bus. We'll call it rev delay. And now I'm going to go to my amps and pedals. I'm going to go to my pedal board and I'm going to pull in our reverse delay here. So if we pull in this delay, we've got this norm and reverse. So we can create this analog reverse here. Let's sync it to the tempo of our song. So we've got it at a 16th. Let's go to a quarter note. Let's bring our feedback down a touch. Let's bring our mix to 100% because we've got it sent here. And then let's listen to how this sounds.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a horrible enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending.
So it's a really interesting, quite creepy and eerie effect. And we can also dial in the low cut, high cut here to shape the tone. We can add dirt and we can add flutter modulation to it as well.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a horrible enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
So for this particular piece here, I would bring the feedback down because it's just getting in the way of the gaps between the vocal phrases here. This is a particularly rhythmic part in this song vocally, so I wouldn't want to clutter it too much. I'd bring that feedback down and then I'd play around with the time as well. So let's just have a play around here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha.
So I'm actually going to put that to a quarter note and let's go one step further because of course we don't just want to do that. We can also pair that with a reverb. So let's go to chroma verb. Let's find a vocal hall.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha.
So this is even more interesting and ominous. And then we can blend this in.
Look Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in. Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. Look.
And we can also go a step further here and perhaps add another effect here. So we can add this Dr. Octave.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing. Ha 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 ha.
So we're creating a ton of movement and atmosphere around this vocal, and this is just one element here. And we have dived into more than just the reverse delay here, but this is kind of the starting point of where you can go. Now, of course, is this something that I'm going to use in this particular song? Probably not. I might play around with adding it in some moments where I perhaps automate parts within the gaps here to create a special moment. But just having this tool in your tool belt can really help with transitions and creating these interesting atmospheric effects that embellish different moments within a song. All right, so let's try reverse delay on our drums. So I'm going to actually do this on hi-hats. I'm not going to do this on our drum group. Let's solo this out for a minute. Let's go to our pedal board. Again, let's pull in our delay, click reverse, sync it, bring our feedback down for now. And then we can blend that in. So you can also use this as a rhythmic effect. So that's adding a lot of character to it. And it's also changing how we're perceiving the rhythm of the hi-hat as well. It's just making it sound a little more interesting and adding that level of nuance to it. We can also use this on other musical instruments for transitions. So let's use our little E piano here. We can just automate the wet of our delay, our reverse delay. That's going to sound very wacky. So let's make this a quarter note and then let's dial this in. So that's almost creating this swelling kind of riser effect. And if we wanted to write that in, you can just press touch. Let's have a look at our automation lane here. And then let's record that in. Maybe let's bring this like so. So you can create these effects as well. So let's just have a quick listen to this with and without. Let's turn it off.
Come closer, let me
actually make more of a meal of this.
Come closer.
So we're creating this kind of rising effect. We've already got a lot of transitions in place in this section here, and we're actually using that space to accentuate our drum fill here. But that is kind of an example of how you can use a reverse delay effect for transitions and also to make your drum parts a little bit more interesting. So let's move on to our next tip. Tip 5 is sidechaining vocal reverb. Sidechaining vocal reverb is a technique used in audio production where the level of a vocal reverb effect is controlled by the level of the vocal itself. This is achieved by using a sidechain input to trigger the reverb effect, typically through a compressor or a dedicated sidechain processing plugin. So there's a number of reasons why we do this. The first reason is maintaining clarity and intelligibility. By sidechaining the vocal reverb to the vocal track, you ensure that the reverb effect doesn't compete with the main vocal for attention in the mix. During moments where the vocal is more prominent, the reverb level is automatically reduced, preserving the clarity and intelligibility of the vocal performance. The second reason is creating a natural and dynamic sound. So mimicking the way reverb behaves in real acoustic spaces where the reverberation level decreases when the sound sources becomes louder, sidechaining the vocal reverb adds a natural and dynamic quality to the mix. It allows the reverb to ebb and flow in response to the dynamics of the vocal performance, enhancing the overall realism of the sound. The third reason is balancing reverb levels in the mix. So sidechaining the vocal reverb helps to balance the levels of reverb across different sections of the song. So during quieter passages, the reverb may be more noticeable, providing a sense of space and ambience. However, as the vocal becomes louder, the reverb is automatically reduced, preventing it from overwhelming the mix. Our fourth reason is enhancing focus on the vocal. By controlling the level of the vocal reverb with the vocal itself, you ensure that the main focus of the mix remains on the vocal performance. The reverb adds depth and dimension to the vocal without drawing attention away from it, allowing the vocal to stand out in the mix and connect with the listener more effectively. And our fifth and final reason is creating a professional and polished mix. Utilizing sidechain vocal reverb is a common technique employed by professional audio engineers to achieve a polished and professional mix. It demonstrates attention to detail and ensures that every element in the mix serves the overall musicality and emotional impact of the song. So let's dive into setting up a vocal reverb sidechain. So first of all, let's send our vocal to a trusty reverb. I'm going to use Chromaverb for this. Let's click our vocal hall. Let's make this quite long. And now let's have a listen to how this sounds. Let's shape the tone a little bit here.
I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Can I get I'm the monster that you made, leave the chaos in your head. Oh.
So, of course, we have got this exaggerated. We may not want this to be as wet here, but I love what is happening with this reverb. So I want this to kind of get out of the way of our lead vocal and envelop it and swell up in the spaces here to create more of a sense of space and dimension for the listener while keeping the vocal up front and present for the listener. So let's sidechain it. So all I need to do here is sidechain the reverb to this lead vocal. So lead comp. Let's just put two exclamation marks here so I can make sure that it's the right one here. There we go. And now we can dial in the attack and release. Let's turn auto gain off. So we want a fast attack generally and a slower release so that it clamps down and allows the transient information to punch through. So we have the impression of things feeling up front and then the swelling as the compression dips down on the reverb and then swells back up in between the spaces where the phrases stop and there's no singing. So let's dial in our ratio.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa,
so you can see the side chain happening here, the reverb ducking when the vocal comes in and then swelling out.
I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head.
So let's listen to this in the context of the music with the sidechain on and off. Of course, we will dial in how wet we actually want this to be, the send itself, the level of dry to wet signal here. But let's just leave the reverb as is and then listen to how this actually changes how we're perceiving the vocal. So without the sidechain, let's turn all of our backing vocals off here. So completely swamped. There's no intelligibility here. We can just hear vocals being tucked back and a ton of long decaying reverb. Yuck. Now let's put our sidechain on. So let's listen to it with the sidechain on. So we're losing parts here. So going back to tip 1, this is why it's so important to gain automate so that we have a nice even dynamic range coming in here, because this also affects how our sends are perceived as well. So coming back to our side chaining of the reverb, let's quickly A/B so that we can hear the difference a little bit more clearly. So off. So we can still have all of that space, all of that lovely long tail, depending on, of course, the style of production you're going for and the BPM. We need to think about all of that as well, the instrumentation and how the reverb is actually interacting with that. In this particular song, I would actually bring the decay down and I would dial that in a little more, as this has a lot more of a rhythmic, short, punchy groove to it. But for this demonstration, we can just leave it as is. But what we're hearing is that we can have all of that retained and then also retain the upfrontedness of the vocal and how present that feels for the listener, and then have the space be a more supportive element that gives the lead vocal somewhere to live in terms of the atmosphere surrounding it, as opposed to it being completely swallowed up. Completely swallowed up there. Present with this kind of tail living behind it. So this is an amazing technique that really can allow you to start to stack up loads of different effects and still retain the presence of the vocal and have the focal point, which 9 times out of 10 will be your vocal, to be right there dead in center for the listener, and then have all of this lovely ambience and depth, width, and space around the vocal without losing its intelligibility. Tip 6 is adding a parallel exciter to your vocals. In Logic Pro, a parallel exciter on vocals is a processing technique used to enhance and add sparkle, presence, and clarity to vocal tracks. The exciter effect is typically applied in parallel with the original vocal signal, allowing you to blend the process signal with the dry vocal to achieve the desired effects. So you can use a parallel exciter on vocals in Logic Pro or any other DAW for several purposes. The first being enhancing presence and clarity. The exciter effect adds harmonics and brightness to the vocal signal, enhancing its presence and clarity in the mix. This can help the vocal cut through other elements in the arrangement and be more intelligible to the listener, especially in dense or busy mixes. The second purpose is adding sparkle and shine. The exciter effect introduces high-frequency content and harmonic richness to the vocal, giving it a quote-unquote sparkle or shine that can make it sound more vibrant and engaging. This can be particularly effective for vocals that sound dull or lackluster, helping them to stand out and grab the listener's attention. Thirdly, balancing frequency response. By selectively boosting certain frequency ranges with the exciter effect, you can address any deficiencies in the vocal's frequency response and achieve a more balanced and pleasing tonal quality. This can help compensate for the limitations of the recording environment or microphone used during the vocal recording. Now, the caveat being we want to try and get this as close to where we want this to be in our recording phase. That means dialing in our microphone selection, our proximity to the microphone, and our room and recording environment. So if you dial those in, you should have a really great starting point, but we don't always have the best or most ideal environments when it comes to recording. So you can use the exciter to also help accentuate some parts of the frequency spectrum that may have not been captured in our recording and try to add those harmonics to accentuate them. So our fourth reason is creating depth and dimension. So using a parallel exciter effect allows you to blend the process vocal signal with the original dry signal, creating a sense of depth and dimension in the vocal sound. This can make the vocal sound fuller and more three-dimensional, enhancing its presence and impact in the mix. And finally, providing creative expression. The exciter offers a wide range of creative possibilities for shaping your vocal sound. By experimenting with the different exciter settings and parameters, you can tailor the vocal's tone and texture to fit the style and mood of the song, adding your own unique touch to the mix. So let's dive into Logic Pro's exciter. This is a very simple plugin, but you can get some great results from it. So if we go to Specialized Exciter, here we have our exciter, so we can choose which frequency we want to add harmonics to, and then we have the percentage of harmonics that we want to add, and we can solo and unsolo our dry signal, and then we've got two different color types here. So color 1 generates a less dense harmonic distortion, and color 2 generates a more intense harmonic distortion. So let's go for color 2. Let's put our harmonics to 200%. And now let's send this to a bus. Let's make sure that we're in stereo here. In fact, let's actually make our bus mono. And let's solo our vocal with and without our exciter.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head.
So we're accentuating 1700 here, so 1.7 kilohertz. So let's say we want to boost 5K and above.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made.
Wow, what a difference here. We're adding more air, more sheen to the vocal. We're adding that sense of brilliance and shine that we're so used to hearing in professional recordings. So we can dial this in parallel now. So So this is just the wet signal with the harmonics here. And let's take this a step further. So the beautiful thing here is we're getting all of that shine here, but we're also adding a little bit of sibilance. So let's just grab our de-esser, and then let's just de-ess. So we definitely need to clip gain this up. So let's quickly do that for the sake of my sanity. So let's A-B this now. Let's have a listen to this before. Now let's turn this on. So we are getting a lot more excitement, hence the name Exciter. And we just feel that this is a lot more present. It feels a lot more polished. And that brightness is giving us this sense of brilliance and that we are living in a more professional realm of where these vocals are sitting. Now, of course, you can dial this into taste. You don't have to have this 200%. You can have this 100% and then dial this in. You can play around with the color. You can also play around with where you want this in terms of the frequency as well. We've got some presets here that you can play around with. The vocal edge. Let's see where that's living. So we're living around 7K, so we're not far off from that. Bearing in mind that this is a preset to have on your insert, so you can actually insert this and then you can blend this harmonics in with the percentage. I like to do this in parallel in the sense of having it sent to a bus. It just gives me a bit more freedom. And we've got color 1, so our color 1 is a little more subtle. It's slightly less dense with the harmonic distortion. It's a bit more transparent. So you can play around with that to taste. So let's quickly A-B what we have going on now. So it's really bringing that vocal to life. It sounded a lot duller before, a lot more lifeless in terms of the actual recording itself. The vocal performance is great here, but we're just thinking about how this is sounding in terms of the dynamics and the tone, as well as the spatial processing here. Where is it living in terms of our cube? And this is really starting to make it feel a lot more upfront, a lot more polished, a lot more professional. And we're starting to move closer to a more professional sounding vocal. Tip 7 is sending vocals to multiple sends for depth, dimension, and space. Sending vocals to multiple sends for depth, dimension, and space is a mixing technique used to create a sense of depth, width, and ambience around the vocal in your mix. Instead of relying on a single effect or send for processing vocals, this approach involves routing the vocal signal to multiple aux tracks or buses, each with its own effects processing. Sending vocals to multiple sends for depth, dimension, and space is done for several reasons. First being to enhance depth and dimension. By routing the vocal signal to multiple sends with different effects, you can create a sense of depth and dimension around the vocal in the mix. Each effect contributes its own spatial characteristics, such as reverb, delay, chorus, etc., to add richness and complexity to the vocal sound. Next is creating a sense of space. Using multiple effect sends allows you to place the vocal in different virtual spaces within the mix. For example, you can use a reverb send to create a sense of distance or ambience, a delay send to add a sense of spaciousness, and a chorus send to widen the vocal image. This creates a more immersive listening experience for the listener. Another reason is tailoring the vocal sound. Different effects can be used to enhance different aspects of the vocal performance. For example, reverb can add warmth and depth, delay can add rhythmic interest and movement, and chorus can add richness and thickness. By sending the vocal to multiple effects, you can tailor the vocal sound to fit the mood and style of the song with the emotional intent at forefront of the spatial processing. Next is achieving professional quality mixes. Sending vocals to multiple effect sends is a common technique used by professional audio engineers to achieve polish and professional quality mixes. It allows for precise control over the spatial characteristics of the vocal, ensuring that it sits well in the mix and contributes to the overall sonic landscape of the song. And the final reason for using this technique is adding interest and depth to the mix. Using multiple effect sends on vocals can add interest and depth to the mix, making it more engaging and compelling for the listener. The varied textures and spatial effects create movement and dynamics within the mix, keeping the listener's attention and enhancing the emotional impact of the song. So let's pull up some different sends here. So we're going to add width, depth, rhythm, and space. So first of all, let's go to our width. I'm going to pull up, let's go to modulation. I'm going to pull up a chorus. Then let's go to our depth. Let's go to reverb. I'm going to pull up a room reverb here. And then rhythm, let's pull up our stereo delay. And finally, our space. So let's go back to our reverb. Let's go to chromaverb again. And I'm going to pull up our vocal plate here. And now let's start dialing each of these in. So let's send a little bit of our vocal to the chorus.
Whoa, can I get a whoa, I'm the monster.
Now our room reverb.
Whoa, can I get a whoa, I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, can I get a whoa?
Now our delay.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made.
And then finally, our space.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil.
I'm going to go one step further and I'm actually going to send my delay to my space. So I want it to be drenched in a little bit of reverb here.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, oh, oh, can I get a whoa, oh, oh? I'm the monster that you made. Leave the chaos in your head.
And come on, let's be a little bit more professional here. Let's sidechain our space reverb to our vocal.
Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? I'm the monster that you made, leave the chaos in your head.
So we're just letting the delay and the space duck the reverb. Because I'm sending our delay here, we can even actually copy that over and do that even more if we want to. So we can...
Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? I'm the monster that you made, leave the chaos in your head.
So we can actually send a bit more here.
Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, oh, can I get a whoa, oh? Can I get a whoa, oh?
So let's listen to this in the context of our mix. So let's also bring our exciter here, because this can also be part of our parallel effects processing here. Okay, let's A-B this now. So let's turn all of this off, including our exciter. And now let's add all of these different effects in. So we can even push these a little bit further in the context of the mix, particularly the delay and the reverb here. Let's bring that delay down a little bit. And now let's just A-B this as we play through it. Now, to make this even fairer, let me just send these. Let's leave our exciter on, so we're not going to A-B, so you're not going to hear this brightness coming on and off, because that'll just give you the perception of it being better. We tend to perceive brightness as just sounding way better. When we hear something that's darker sounding and then it's got brightness to it, we go, oh, that sounds more polished and better. So let's just listen to these effects here and let me solo it.
Whoa, can I get a whoa, I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, can I get a whoa, I'm the monster that you made, leave the chaos in your head. Oh,
so there is just a ton happening here. We've got a sense of width, depth, space, movement happening with all of these different sends that we were sending little bits at a time to start creating a more interesting vocal that has more nuance to it. So the sky really is the limit here. You are not just limited to just doing these very basic sends here. For example, this delay, you can add modulation after it. Like I would maybe add a flanger to it to add more character.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa.
And of course, you can shape the tone of each of these, and you'll probably want to do that as well to make sure everything is sitting really nicely in the mix and you're not over cluttering. You're not adding unnecessary peaks within the frequency spectrum, and you can kind of mitigate any build up there as well. So there you have it. That is adding multiple effect sends to your vocals. Tip 8 is to meter the frequency curve of your mix on your stereo out or master bus for objectivity. In Logic Pro, the metering frequency curve on the stereo output refers to a visual representation of the frequency spectrum of an audio signal that is passing through the stereo output channel. This metering curve provides valuable information about the balance and distribution of frequencies in your mix. When comparing your mix against reference tracks, using the metering frequency curve on the stereo output can help ensure objectivity in your mixing decisions. Using the metering frequency curve on the stereo output in Logic or any other DAW serves several important purposes in the mixing process. First of all, frequency balancing. The metering frequency curve provides a visual representation of the frequency spectrum of your mix, and by analyzing this curve, you can ensure that your mix is well balanced across the entire frequency spectrum. This is crucial for achieving clarity, definition, and fullness in your mix, as well as preventing certain frequencies from overpowering others. Secondly, reference comparison. Comparing the metering frequency curve of your mix against reference tracks allows you to gauge how your mix stands up against professional or industry standard productions. This helps ensure that your mix is competitive and meets the standards of the genre or style you are working in. It can also reveal any discrepancies or areas for improvement in your mix frequencies balance. Objective analysis. The metering frequency curves provide an objective way to analyze the frequency content of your mix. This is particularly useful for identifying potential issues that may not be immediately apparent when listening to the mix, such as frequency buildup, masking, or imbalances between different elements of your mix. Troubleshooting and correction. If you notice any discrepancies or imbalances in the metering frequency curve, you can take corrective action to address them. This might involve adjusting EQ settings, balancing levels, or applying other processing to specific elements of the mix to achieve a more balanced frequency response. And finally, quality assurance. Utilizing the metering frequency curves helps ensure the overall quality and fidelity of your mix. By paying attention to the frequency balance and making necessary adjustments, you can create a mix that translates well across different playback systems and environments, resulting in a more professional sounding end product. So let's dive into how we can set this up in a few ways in Logic Pro. So first of all, the simplest way is to just pull up a channel EQ, and then what you can do is actually play your track. Let's turn off our delay for now. Turn our dubs on. So what we can do here is just pull this up, and then we can look at this, and then we can also pull up our reference track. So for this, let me just pull up this master here. This is one of Lucy's other tracks that has been released, Sweet Sabotage. Let's pull this in here. Let's find our chorus.
All these messy parts I hide. That are my sweet living knows. That are my sweet self-sabotage. My sweet self-sabotaging hold on me.
And then we can look at this frequency curve here.
Sweet self-sabotaging. Whoa. Can I get a whoa? I'm the monster.
And we can look at it this way. This is the most simplistic way, and it's not the most accurate. So we can go to our metering, which I recommend, and we can pull up our correlation meter or our multimeter. So multimeter is going to be
Can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made. The little man so I can hardly breathe and dragging me down, save me, drowning in my brain's hatred.
So we can look at the frequency curve here, and we can listen to it as well as see what's happening here. So I can see there's a lot more high end here.
Self-sabotaging. Can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made. The little devil I can hardly breathe.
We've got a little bit more going here.
Save me, drowning in my brain's hatred.
We've got a lot less low mids. Now, bearing in mind this is a master, so my goal here is to try to get my mix to sound as close to mastered as possible by doing all of the things necessary, by mitigating any frequency buildup within all the elements, making sure that the relationships have been managed, making sure we've got a great dynamic range, and also that we have got headroom for mastering as well. So I want to try to get this as close to mastered without mastering it, if that makes sense. So we're working with the end in mind here. So you can look at our analyzer here. You can also look at our stereo metering here as well.
I'm the monster that you made. Lungs so I can hardly breathe.
So you can go one step further. You can look at loudness as well. That's not something that I'm worrying about right now because we're not in the mastering phase here. So personally, I use third-party plugins for my metering here. I have a better time doing that, but you can absolutely use the multimeter and the EQ as well. And you can look at your correlation meter. That's also in your multimeter as well here. So you can kind of just look at everything overall here and play around with how things are looking as well as sounding. So don't rely so heavily on the visuals here. Really try and trust your ears, but also you can look at how close this is in terms of how the frequencies are distributed as well. So this is a pretty simple tip here, but it can take you a long way, especially when you have been mixing for a while on a particular project and you want to anchor yourself back into objectivity. Modulation on percussion when mixing refers to the use of modulation effects such as chorus, flanges, or phasers to enhance or modify the characteristics of percussive elements in a mix. These effects can add movement, depth, and texture to percussion tracks, making them more interesting and dynamic within the mix. Here's how modulation effects can be applied to percussion during mixing. We can add chorus for thickness and richness to percussive sounds by creating multiple slightly detuned duplicates of the original signal, and this can make percussion tracks sound fuller and more expansive. We can add flanges to create a sweeping jet-like effect by modulating the delay time of an audio signal. And when applied to percussion, a flanger can add movement and intensity, creating a sense of motion or excitement. You can also use a phaser, which produces a series of peaks and troughs in the frequency spectrum by combining the original signal with a phase-shifted version of itself. So this creates a swirling, sweeping effect that can add depth and movement to percussion tracks. We can also use tremolo, which modulates the volume of an audio signal at a specific rate, creating a rhythmic pulsating effect. So when applied to percussion, tremolo can add a sense of pulsation or rhythm, enhancing the groove and feel of your track. We can add modulation effects on percussion for several reasons. First off, enhancing texture and depth. Modulation effects such as chorus, flanges, and phasers add depth and texture to percussion tracks. By introducing subtle variations in pitch, time, or phase, these effects create a sense of movement and complexity within the percussion, making it more interesting to listen to. Secondly, we can add movement and dynamics. Modulation effects can impart a sense of motion and dynamics to percussion tracks. By modulating certain parameters like delay time or phase shift, these effects create a rhythmic or swirling sensation that adds energy and excitement to your mix. Creating space and ambience. Modulation effects can help create a sense of space and ambience in the mix. By spreading out the sound or introducing subtle variations in timbre, these effects contribute to the overall spatialization of the percussion, making it feel more immersive and enveloping for the listener. Highlighting percussive accents. Modulation effects can be used to accentuate specific percussive elements within your mix. By applying effects like flanges or tremolo to certain hits or accents, these elements can be made to stand out more prominently, adding emphasis and impact to the rhythm. And finally, enhancing musicality and expression. Modulation effects can contribute to the musicality and expression of your percussion tracks. By adding subtle variations in pitch, timing, or timbre, these effects can impart a sense of groove, swing, or funkiness to the percussion, helping to drive the rhythm and groove of your song. So let's dive into this practically. So I'm going to work with our hats here. We've got our eighth notes, and then we've got these hats here that, remember earlier, we added our reverse delay here. So let's add some modulation here. So as well as our reverse here, I'm going to add a microphaser. And here I've actually got modulation on here with a third-party plugin. And let's turn that off and let's use tremolo to auto pan it. And we can also do some modulation in series here. So first off, let's put chorus on here. So we're panning that every bar, we're panning from left to right, and we can make this more aggressive. I want it to be quite smooth, bring the depth down so it's a little more subtle. We're not 100% panning this, like so. Actually, I'll do that. And then we can put a flanger on our open hats. So let's listen to all of our drums with and without this modulation. So with, without. Now I'm just going to turn it on and off as we play. And we can even add some modulation here to our shaker. So let's maybe put this in a rotor cabinet. And then we can just solo this part here. So we're not only creating more character, more movement, we're also affecting the tone. So with this rotor cabinet, we're actually losing a lot of that high end. So depending on the demands of the track and the kind of style you're going for and the decisions you're making based off of your references, you may actually want that with your percussive parts. You might want to have it darker and more tucked back in the mix. So you can use these modulation effects to not only start to make these sounds a little more interesting and immersive for the listener, you can also use these in tandem with some other processing to affect the tone and the placement within the stereo field and the front to back dimension of your mix. Tip 10 is multiband processing on vocals. Multiband processing on vocals involves dividing the vocal signal into multiple frequency bands and processing each band individually using dynamic processing techniques such as compression or expansion. This approach allows for more precise control over the tonal balance and dynamic range of the vocal performance. Multiband processing on vocals is done for several reasons, each contributing to the overall improvement of the vocal sound and mix as a whole. First off, we have precise frequency control. Multiband processing allows you to target specific frequency ranges within the vocal signal, addressing issues or enhancing characteristics with greater precision. This is particularly useful for vocals as it allows you to focus on problematic frequency areas or highlight desirable qualities without affecting the entire vocal spectrum. Secondly, we have dynamic range control. By applying multiband compression to vocals, you can control the dynamic range of different frequency bands independently. This helps to even out volume inconsistencies across the vocal performance, ensuring a more consistent and balanced sound. It also prevents certain frequency ranges from dominating the mix or getting lost in the background. And finally, we have tonal balance adjustment. Multiband equalization enables you to shape the tonal balance of the vocal by boosting or cutting specific frequencies within each frequency band. This allows you to address tonal issues, enhance desired characteristics, and ensure that the vocal sits well in the mix alongside other instruments and elements. So for this, we're going to use our multipressor. So what this is a multiband compressor. So we have these 4 bands that are splitting up the frequency spectrum. So we've got 20 hertz to around 150 hertz, then 200 hertz to 1 kilohertz, 1 kilohertz to 8 kilohertz, and then 8 kilohertz to 20 kilohertz. And we can move these across, and then we can bring the threshold down to start compressing these. So let me show you how I would go about doing this.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your life.
For now, let's turn our effects off.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies.
So I can solo.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies. Lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha.
I can solo each of these bands. I can bypass each of them as well. So what I really want to focus on here is the mids and low mids. So this area here, band 2.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies. Lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. I'll be whispering sweet nothings. Will you listen? Come closer, let me in.
So we can actually start to shape the dynamic range of this and also the frequency spectrum as well. So there are going to be parts naturally where certain parts of the frequency spectrum build up or peak at certain parts, and this just allows us to mitigate that and smooth it out. So these lovely smooth vocals that you hear from your favorite artists oftentimes come from this multi-band processing. So let's have a listen to this before and after.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. I'll be whispering sweet nothings. Will you listen? Come closer, let me in.
And what we can also do here is we can actually boost different parts of the frequency spectrum as well. So if we wanted to...
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending.
So you can also do that as well. I typically don't do that. I would shape that with an EQ, but we can play around with that as well. You have your makeup gain, so we can just...
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from...
Let's listen to this in the context of our music.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha 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 ha. I smell jealousy, a humble enemy. Pretty sure this villain story started suiting me. No use in pretending, keep my happy ending. I'll be whispering sweet nothing.
So this is just smoothing out the tonal characteristics of the vocal. It's making sure that we retain as much as possible, but we also make sure that any build-up is mitigated in the parts where those areas in the frequency spectrum do build up. So this is a really great tool that you can play around with. You can also do this on your entire mix as well. So if we were to put this here.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing.
We can just kiss that low end.
Look at the price you're paying, locked out from your lies, lonely and confessing, ha ha.
We can just touch that low and low mid area here. Of course you can do this with EQ, but if you want it to be a little bit more transparent, you can also play around with that as well. You could bring the auto gain on as well.
Look at the price you're... Look at the price you're...
I recommend leaving that alone in general and then just kind of doing this by ear. But there you have it. That is multiband processing, particularly on vocals. But I just wanted to demonstrate that the sky really is the limit with all of these tools. You don't have to be limited to just what I'm demonstrating here. You can use this for any element within your mix and also the mix overall. And you can also use this within mastering. Tip 11 is to use Match EQ for referencing. Match EQ in Logic Pro is a feature that allows you to analyze the frequency spectrum of a reference track and apply the same frequency curve to another track or mix. This can be particularly useful for referencing when you want to achieve a similar tonal balance or frequency response in your own mix. This can also be used for learning purposes as well. Using Match EQ for referencing in Logic Pro serves several purposes. First of all, you can achieve consistency. Matching the frequency spectrum of your mix to that of a reference track helps ensure consistency and coherence in the overall tonal balance of your mix. And this can be particularly useful when you want your mix to sound similar to commercially successful tracks in your genre or style. Now, proceed with caution here, because when it comes to referencing, we don't necessarily want to copy the tonal balance overall, and we also have to bear in mind that there have been different sounds selected, different arrangement choices, and also different recording processes, which will all culminate in a slightly different tonal balance. But when you are using this for purposes of learning and kind of seeing the differences between your reference and your own mix, this can be particularly useful. Next up, we have aiming for a professional sound. So referencing against well-mixed and mastered tracks allows you to emulate the tonal characteristics and sonic qualities that are commonly associated with professional productions, and this can help elevate the quality of your mix and make it more competitive in the industry. Still, we have to bear in mind that we can't rely heavily on this tool to just fix our mix. That's not what this is for. This is for us to actually learn where our mix is in comparison to our references. And finally, learning and education. So analyzing the frequency spectrum of reference tracks and comparing it to your mix can provide valuable insights into the mixing and mastering process. And it can allow you to observe how different elements are balanced and how various frequency ranges contribute to the overall sound. So for this example, I'm going to actually put this on our stereo out on our master bus. Let's go to EQ, match EQ. And what we need to do here is just play our current mix. And then now we need to press our reference. So we'll pull up Sweet Sabotage again. And now we click match, and you can see that it's matching our EQ curve. So we can see that we've got a lot more of this low mid build up around 250 Hertz. We've got less of this mid compared to the reference. We've got a little bit of a build up here, and we've got a lot less highs. And we can also fade the extremes here so that we are making it a little more transparent. So I'm going to do that for now. So let's have a listen to how this fares against where we're at right now. And we can also make this less or more extreme. So if we wanted to just kind of make this 35 or 30% applied. So to my ears, this sounds a lot better. Here, it sounds horrendous. So I wouldn't just leave this as is and go, well, Logic told me that this is how it matches to this other mix or master that I like. This is extremely harsh and unpleasant for me to listen to. So I also need to use my ears and dial this in to taste. So you can't just rely on plugins like this to help you out of learning your craft. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. If that was the case, I would be a much better mixer, and it wouldn't have taken me years to get to where I am at right now in terms of my skill levels. So we really do need to learn our tools and the foundational concepts and not rely on stuff like this. But this is a really great learning tool because it's telling me, okay, so when it comes to me revisiting my mix here, maybe I want to look at what is happening between 2 and 5k, and then 5 and 10k, and then if I potentially want this little boost around 12 to 16k, and I've got some build up here that I might not necessarily want, and I can play around with that as well. And it can also tell us the gain and Q as well when you click on these, which is really helpful. And you can press option to reset the gain. So if I wanted to reset that, I can. So let's just have a quick listen to the extreme of this. So I like the little bit of energy that is being accentuated here and the cut here. So I can bear that in mind going back to my own mix, and I can make those necessary adjustments using both the volume fader and EQ with these specific elements. So these low mids, it's going to kind of be the vocals, the bass, and any other low mid-range elements like perhaps our piano, definitely our bass piano, and our E piano here. So I can go in and kind of rebalance that. I can add some EQ to the vocals around this area here, which you can see we've already done. I can, you know, mitigate that even more. I can do some multiband processing just on this particular area. So, you know, I could just isolate this area here.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, can I get a whoa?
And then we had that build up in the 1K area here.
Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made, the little devil in your head. Whoa, can I get a whoa? I'm the monster that you made.
So I can make all of those adjustments within my mix and not try to rely on this to fix problems that I should be going back to and correcting myself. But this is a really fantastic tool for learning. Like I said, the sky really is the limit. You could put this on your vocals and then you can bring in a reference, you know, a vocalist that is similar and perhaps one that you are aiming to emulate in terms of the tonal balance and processing, and you can kind of listen to how your vocal is different. You can look at the differences and see what you like about that, what feels right in the context of this mix, and then start to make those changes. And last but by no means least, we have adding analog emulations for saturation and color. Analog emulation for saturation and color in Logic Pro with stock plugins involves using digital signal processing techniques to replicate the characteristics of analog hardware equipment, such as tape machines, analog consoles, or vintage outboard gear. These emulations aim to add warmth, character, and harmonic distortion to digital audio signals, enhancing the sonic quality and adding depth to the mix. So there are several reasons why you might want to use analog emulations for saturation and color in Logic Pro. First of all, to add warmth and depth. So analog emulation plugins can impart a warmth and depth to your audio that is often associated with analog equipment. And this can help to create a more organic and natural sound, making your digital recording sound warmer and more inviting. Secondly, enhancing harmonic content. Analog emulation plugins introduce harmonic distortion and saturation, which can enhance the harmonic content of your audio signals, and this can add richness and complexity to your sounds, making them more interesting and dynamic. Thirdly, we can create vintage vibes. So analog emulation plugins allow you to recreate the sonic characteristics of vintage analog gear, such as tape machines, tube preamps, and analog consoles. And this can help you achieve a retro or vintage sound aesthetic, evoking the warmth and character of classic recordings. Using these tools can also improve mix cohesion. By adding subtle analog coloration to your tracks, you can help to glue your mix together and create a more cohesive and unified sound. Analog emulation can impart a similar sonic character to all of your tracks, helping them to sit together more naturally in your mix. And finally, inspiring creativity. Experimenting with analog emulation plugins can be a creative and inspiring process. The unique sonic characteristics of analog gear can spark new ideas and inspire creative decisions, helping you to achieve a more unique and original sound in your productions. So we have a few tools at our disposal here. First of all, let's work on our drums. So we have our compressors. Now, aside from our Platinum Digital, all of these are modeled on analog compressors. So I'm not going to dive into each and every single one of these, but we've got our VCA, we've got our FET, and we've got our Opto. So these all have different circuitry, and this imparts a different characteristics in terms of the tonal characteristics and harmonics. So each of these is going to have a different harmonic profile and tonal profile. So we can dial each of these into taste, and we can also add distortion. So soft distortion will change how each of these sound. So let's just very quickly dial this in. So we've got a bit more high end here. A bit more mid-range. more low, mid, and lows. So each of these have different sonic characteristics, and this is quite subtle here. I'm driving the distortion harder, I'm bringing the threshold down to try to make this a little more audible. These are slightly different tonal characteristics. There are different areas of the frequency spectrum that are being accentuated with each of these different compressors. And as you may have noticed, the threshold and the way that this is actually being fed is slightly different as well. So we have a lot of gain reduction on this one, whereas we have different varying amounts of gain reduction with each of these. So we have to dial in the threshold differently. So this is one way that we can impart some harmonic distortion and a different analog tonal profile. Let's use some other tools here. So we've got our vintage EQs, which are really, really awesome here. So let's go down to our vintage EQ collection here, right at the bottom. We've got our console, our graphic, and our tube. Now, I love the output here, the drive, so we don't even necessarily need to use the EQ itself to shape the tone. We can just use the drive, the output model, and we can choose silky, punchy, or smooth. So let's do a little experiment here. Let's drive this on silky, punchy, and smooth, and let's bounce this in place. Now, let's do punchy, smooth. So let's listen to our drums without any of that analog emulation on it. Now let's listen to silky. So if you listen to the snare, you can really hear that there's a little bit more dirt and grit to the claps / snares. Let's listen to punchy. Listen to the kick. It's added this distortion to the kick. Now, of course, we've driven this all the way. We might not want to do that all the way, but we can hear that there's a lot more punch in the low end and the low mids. Now let's listen to smooth. It feels a lot fuller, there's a little bit more of that top end, and everything feels like it's just got a lot more character. Now this stuff is subtle, but overall this starts to stack up, particularly when you are putting these on different elements, and overall you start to have a fuller, thicker, glued mix. That is exactly what we want to go for. We want to try to impart as much character on these digital signals as possible to make our mixes more warm, inviting, and more harmonically pleasing for the listener. So let's talk about creating that kind of vintage vibe here. So to do this, we can use our tape delay, and we don't even necessarily need to use our delay, so we can bring our feedback down and we can just use our clip threshold. So we can add our flutter. So we've got no delay time, no feedback. We're just using the characteristics, our flutter intensity, our clip threshold, and our tape head mode. So we're adding this distortion. We can also play around with this LFO. So this is imparting imperfect pitch. And we can blend this in. Let's also add some saturation to our bass. So let's go to our fat effects. Let's turn all of these other modules off. Let's leave our bass enhancer on, we can do that. And let's add soft saturation. Let's turn our bass enhancer off for now. Our tube. Let's try to match this. So let's bring our output down. So let's turn these processes off. Let's turn fat effects off. We'll turn our tape delay off. And let's listen to this with no analog emulation plugins on here. Now let's turn all of these back on. I'm going to put this on punchy. Let's put our fat effects back on and our tape delay. Let's bring these down here so that I can A/B them quicker. So particularly with those drums, we really get this more glued sound. It sounds a lot fuller, a lot more up front, which is really nice. And we also get more harmonic content with our bass, and with our E piano, we've got a bit more grit, we've got a little bit more imperfection, and it's really just starting to add more character and nuance to our mix overall, and just making it more pleasing and fuller, which is exactly what we want. So that is it for our 12 tips for better mixes in Logic Pro. Now, it is worth mentioning that it's great having all of these tools, techniques, and tips to have in your tool belt, but without the proper foundational concepts in place, without mastery of all of these tools and ears that are able to make correct decisions and create mixes and productions that are objectively at the standard that we all strive to be at in terms of being competitive, this all comes with knowing all of the right foundational concepts. So no amount of tips and tricks are going to take you to the top tier of production and engineering. That comes with mixing consistently, with working on your mindset, with knowing the right processes, knowing where to go and how to do things in a correct manner. And all of these tools and techniques are supplementary. So I hope you enjoyed this video, but remember that tips alone will not get you to where you need to go. So now that you have these 12 tips under your belt, the next step is to download the free volume balancing cheat sheet to help you go and apply all of this to your mixes moving forward, starting with the strongest foundation. So just click the link in the description and go and grab that. Then once you've done that, there's another essential technique you need to be aware of to make sure you don't start destroying your mixes without the proper understanding of compression. Dylan reveals everything you need to know about using compression in the video you see on screen now. So just click that video if you want to learn how to master compression. Enjoy the next lesson.